There's only one thing that you need to worry about right now. It's the fact that we've had to wait so long on this show without Nina Turner. But thankfully, that wait ends today. Nina's back. Nina Turner, how's it going?
It's going good, John. It's so great to be back here to the entire Dragon Squad. I have missed you immensely, but Black Pearl Dragon is back, baby.
You are, and we're very glad to see it. I can see the comments coming in already. And I personally need it because it's not a great time. And one of the ways I sort of think about things is like, how much of the stuff we have to pay attention to and cover on the show is about the good guys and the bad guys. And I feel like we're in like a 95% bad guys period. And so if I can't get good guys making news, I at least want to have a good one on the news with me. And so we've got you. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you. I'm sure everybody's very excited to hear your perspective on the news. If you want to make any announcements or anything, feel free to do that. But over the course of the show, we are going to be talking about a lot. Well, we're going to be focusing to start off the show on corruption, on who in these turbulent economic times is actually doing well and how they're doing well, both individuals and corporations. We're going to be breaking that down. We didn't get to the Bernie Sanders interview yesterday on the show, but that's actually fine because I want Nina's perspective on some of what Bernie had to say anyway. So we'll be getting to that too. How Pete Hegseth might have accidentally really hurt Donald Trump in a legal case involving the invasion of LA from just a couple months ago, and a whole lot more besides that. Also, did Trump do it? Did he get away with the Epstein cover-up? Have the people moved on? We're going to be evaluating that. And that's all in the first hour. Coming up in the aftermath, we're going to be talking about the massive protests in Israel against the escalation of the military invasion of Gaza, and a new analysis of who was actually benefited from the big, beautiful bill and who wasn't. Spoiler alert, you already know all of it, but we're gonna dig into the numbers and what it actually means in practice. And so with all that said, please hit the like button, share the stream, send us your tweets, your comments, your super chats. And if you do, if they're interesting or funny or revelatory, you might earn yourself a $100 Blue Apron gift card. So get those in soon. But with all that said, Nina, are you ready to do this thing?
Let's rock and roll, John.
Okay, let's rock and roll. Let's rock and roll with this.
The president stands with the American people on this. He doesn't want to see people like Nancy Pelosi enriching themselves off of public service and ripping off their constituents in the process. I think it's frankly ridiculous that anyone in this room would even suggest that President Trump is doing anything for his own benefit. He left a life of luxury and a life of running a very successful real estate empire for public service, not just once, but twice. And again, the American public reelected him back to this White House because they trust he acts in the best interest of our country and putting the American public first. This is a president who has actually lost money for being president of the United States.
Dear God, I think I've identified Carolyn Leavitt's first lie. She had such a good track record too, but no, that wasn't true. And ridiculous or not, I am going to continue to assert that Donald Trump is massively enriching himself and his family with the presidency. And however much you think he's benefited monetarily, you gotta get that number up. It's higher than you think, because a new analysis says they believe that since 2017, him and his family have been enriched to the tune of $3.4 billion, which is something like twice as much as they were worth before he entered the White House. And so whether you believe his real estate empire was successful or not previously, like Carolyn Leavitt says that she does, nothing he has done, no condo sales, no golf courses, no Trump steaks, no Trump Air, any of that can compare to the money that he has earned thanks to the fact that he is the White House. And he's not the only one benefiting. A lot of wealthy people have benefited massively since he became president. And we will be diving into that, but let's start off with him. So the first revenue stream, and there are many of these, seemingly a new one every week, comes from Trump's Palm Beach estate, Mar-a-Lago. So In addition to the revenue he generates by holding his own campaign events at the club, which directly benefits him monetarily, he has profited from other candidates, conservative groups, and influence seekers rushing to hold events there too. Again, for pay. He takes the money the donors paid to those other candidates. It goes to Donald Trump, and way more than you might think. The club says that it limits membership to 500 people. Each reportedly pays an annual fee of about $20,000. But after the 2016 election, he began jacking up that initiation fee. In 2016, it was $100,000. Last fall, it was set to rise to $1 million. And it could be 5 million, it could be 20 million. It doesn't matter, because there are definitely 500 people that want proximity to the president, and they will pay for it. And unlike a campaign donation, there's no limit on what he can accept. They can just hand $20 million to the president, have his ear, have dinner with him, have big, beautiful pieces of cake, and it's all legal. Campaign finance laws need not apply. And that's not it. Okay, that's $125 million he's apparently benefited just through Mar-a-Lago. But there's a lot more than that, and it's escalating, particularly in the area of cryptocurrency. 73% of his net worth apparently now comes from crypto, despite the fact that his family only really got into it like 2 years ago. I mean, he had his trading cards or whatever, but now massively overshadowing real estate or anything like that. He has made over $400 million on token investments. His family has made about $1.3 billion thanks to cryptocurrency so far. And what do you know, by the way? Since he became president, he's passed multiple executive orders further deregulating cryptocurrency. Just last week, he passed an executive order allowing Wall Street's variety of different alternative investment mechanisms, including cryptocurrency, to now have access to 401ks, which not only massively benefits them, but also potentially imperils millions of Americans' retirements. And so he is set to make way more off of that as well. Now, we have a lot more on this, but Nina, we're gonna broaden this to how corporations have been benefiting recently, but we're starting with the Trump family because this myth persists that he would never do anything for his own financial advantage. And I find that to be offensive since I'm a fan of reality. What do you think?
I am too, John, and certainly the presidency is the best thing that has ever happened to President Donald J. Trump. It certainly is a one-way ATM, unfortunately, while he is in office. A lot of politicians of that stature certainly have made money or come into it with a lot of money. That's one of the problems with the system, that it does not comport itself to allow working class people to really have an opportunity to run for Congress writ large, the Senate or the House, less known the presidency of the United States of America. His press secretary is delusional, but you know what? TYT family, she's doing her job. Her job is to advocate and to defend the president of the United States of America, just like every other press secretary has. And from time to time, John, they don't suspect that people like us and others will see the cracks in what they are saying. He left a life of luxury. How is that? I mean, he has the plane on America's dime. He lives in public housing on our dime. He benefits from a public healthcare system, one that he and members of the GOP and also Democrats too are not willing to afford to other Americans in this country. So it is very clear, and that stat, I mean, just staggering, John, $3.4 billion off of being the president of the United States of America and counting. And shame on folks that won't stop the stock buybacks. Yep. And that kind of stuff that is happening in the Congress. Again, Democrats had the opportunity to do it. Former leader Nancy Pelosi stood in the way of it. So for me, John, neither one of these parties, I mean, we're highlighting the corrupt nature, that it is legal to bribe politicians in the United States of America. I need the Dragon Squad to wrap their minds around it, understand it, and the fact that this is bigger than President Donald J. Trump. This system existed before him. Hopefully it won't exist after him, but we, the thinking public and people who care about this level of corruption, have got to act to be able to put bumpers along the way to stop this from happening. And campaign finance reform, John, is one of the ways to do it. Although some of the things that you laid out, campaign finance reform would not be able to prevent in the immediate moment the fact that the president can rent out Mar-a-Lago whenever he wants to.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that I've been asking for a long time and I've never gotten an answer. Like, so if you, let's say you run for office and you release an NFT, it's nothing, it's just digital fluff or whatever, and you charge $5 million for it. You could just do that? Like, and some billionaire I mean, that they wouldn't do that for you.
I don't know in that case, John.
I'm saying,
I don't know. I'm kind of warming
some
up.
candidate. Okay, let's say we track down a left-wing billionaire who gives a damn about the world or whatever, and he's like, yeah, no, I want that NFT that she made. I'm gonna give $100 million for that. You can do that, I guess.
Yeah.
Evidently you can. I guess this is a rhetorical question, but evidently you can. And even in that, the bill that you were referring to that bans the individual stock trading, which definitely should be passed and should have, as you said, been passed under the Democrats. But unfortunately, Nancy Pelosi is only on board when she's in charge of it. Has a carve out so Donald Trump can continue to maintain individual stock until after he's president anymore. So the corruption. And also the idea that he left a life of luxury. Have you looked at what he's done to the Oval Office? He covered everything in gold. He's building a $200 million ballroom for fancy dancing. He hasn't left anything. He's dragged it along everywhere he's gone. And so are the people not sick finally of the corruption, the epic bribery and corruption? And one other thing I worry about, and feel free to chime in on that, but prior to this, the crypto week, we already had a bunch of, especially Democratic primaries, where crypto money would flood in there. Oh, I know you know everything about this. Would flood in there, and now the gloves are off. They can make even more money, and they're definitely going to use it to influence these elections. What race is going to be free of the influence of cryptocurrency from here on out?
None, John, as it seems. And if this, corruption is flowing like milk and honey. It's personally for my race in 2020 and 2021, as you well know, and the TYT family knows, crypto money came in heavy in the Ohio 11th district. And it turns out that my race in 2020 and 2021 was the most expensive congressional race for the Ohio 11th congressional district. These people are buying that. People have to understand these big money interests, they're not doing this for nothing. They're not just doing this for a picture and a smile. They're doing this to be able to purchase influence, the level of influence that the average voter, the average American just does not have. And so we call this the United States of America. But John, I'm really, it's the corporate states of America. And it's been that way for a long time. But to your point, the bubbling up that is really all up in our face. Like nobody can say that they don't see it. Because President Donald J. Trump is making sure that we fully understand the situation. The question becomes, when is enough enough? And when will the American people revolt enough in that we don't elect people? We don't even entertain electing anybody that takes this kind of money. And if the Democratic Party was smart, John, if they were smart, because they're real feckless, if they were smart, they would bar dark money, big money, all of that in primaries. It is a corrupting force indeed, and it drowns out. This is the point. It's not just about me. It's about what happened to Congresswoman Cori Bush or Congressman Bowman, people like that, and so many others, John, who don't have a real opportunity. But more important than any of us who've ever run for office, it is about the residents in St. Louis, the residents in a portion of New York, the residents of Greater Cleveland, having their voices and their right to choose, unfettered by other influences, the type of people that they want elected to serve them and not the corporate interest. It's the owner donors, and they got choke collars on these people.
100%. Yeah, and the collars are gonna get even bigger. They're gonna be gold plated, they're still gonna be collars. Okay, well, let's move on. You mentioned the corporate states of America. Let's talk about that right now. Nobody was surprised that one of the first things that happened after Donald Trump got in office is they passed this absolutely massive tax cut bill. And individual billionaires made out like bandits, almost literally like bandits, but not just them, corporations too. And corporations are already and will be, as long as Donald Trump is in office, and if another corporate Democrat gets in, likely even then, be flooded with money. And the argument that's made to the American people is, no, that's not corrupt or whatever, it's good because we give them tons of money and then they invest it, they hire people, it all trickles down. But does it? I'm going to show you the recent numbers, but I want you to bear in mind, recent numbers or not, what always ends up happening when you shower them with money is they use it to their benefit, not to the benefit of the workers, the American people, or the American government, or anything like that. And this is just the most recent cycle of that. What they're doing is corporate stock buybacks. It's what they always do when you give them money. And those buybacks are now expected to top $1.1 trillion this year, led by big banks and tech firms. They've already announced just shy of $1 trillion of stock buybacks so far this year. The best start to a year on record, with best having a certain meaning, I suppose. I don't think it's best from my perspective, but it should end up topping $1.1 trillion. And you can see how that has trended over the last 20 years or so. And if you're not a CEO, I assume most of you are. If you're not a CEO, what this basically is they have all this money. They have way too much money to spend on things like new factories, new facilities, which, and this is gonna blow the mind of people like Donald Trump, you don't just build because you have the money to build it. You build it if you need to build it. You build those sorts of things. You produce more gadgets and doodads based on demand, not just based on having the cash. You don't do it out of the goodness of your heart. You do it if you need to. And since they don't need to, they find somewhere else to put the money. And so what do? They literally buy their own stock. And you might wonder, if you're one of the vast majority of the American public who doesn't own stock, well, why would they do that? Because if they buy up the stock, there's less stock out there, which means that the individual stock is worth more money. And why would you do that? Well, the board members, including the CEO, all the leadership, they own a ton of the stock. And so it's a way for them to effectively give themselves a massive raise. And even aside from the personal corruption of that, make it look like the corporation is worth way more than it was, even though the fundamentals, supply and demand, all of that, are exactly the same. It's what they do every time they're showered with money, which is effectively every time a new Republican administration comes in and passes a massive tax bill like this, which Trump did, and Trump did last time, and George W. Bush, and on for literally decades. And so that's what they're doing. None of this, by the way, will produce a single additional job. None of this is research and development that lowers the cost of the goods and services that you buy or anything like that. It's not building out the infrastructure of America. It's jacking up artificially the stock price of these corporations. It's what we told you they would do, and it's what they're doing, Nina. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, and it, John, as you were talking, I was thinking gluttony, greed. That's really what this is. I mean, how much money is enough? And to live in a society, a hegemonic nation like the United States of America, where so few have so much and so many have little. A society where people can't afford their health care, where people put insulin on credit cards, where food banks now, we have a GOP leadership that has cut funding to food banks. They worship at the feet in real time to these corporations, and the system is rigged. I need folks to understand that. But the system is not immutable, meaning the system was created by a group of people and the system can be recreated by a group of people. Again, the question becomes, when will we, the people, be so fed up that we're not going to take this anymore? These corporations are unpatriotic, and they are showing that they don't care one iota about we the people, about the American people.
I hope that they are enraged, at the very least in time for the Democratic primary, which should hopefully, I want it to be a royal goddamn rumble. I want it to be a metaphoric blood sport. I want, put whatever centrist Democratic governors you want or whatever. We got one locally. You can send them over there and then have them face down the best progressives, a whole bunch of them. You know what I want that we've almost never gotten? I want a Democratic primary where I get to be in vicious debates, feuds with other leftists about the best presidential candidate. Not like, oh, we got one and they're gonna be shivved by Buttigieg or whatever. No, not that. I wanna be like, no, I think it should be X or whatever. No, it's actually them. They've got a better housing policy. They're more committed to climate justice. That's what I want, and I hope that we get it. And there's a whole bunch of time leading up to that for us to generate a bunch of great candidates. Now, we're gonna cover one more topic briefly there. Because we're talking about how all of this showering them with money is not going to generate more jobs. Well, so what do you do if it doesn't? Like, the jobs numbers are not looking great. Well, what if you had a little bit more control over the numbers? Let's talk about that right now. So after having an epic meltdown over the accurate jobs numbers that were released just a couple of weeks ago, Trump ended up canning the prior head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, who I will remind you is not in charge of generating those numbers. She's just the messenger, but he fired her anyway. And so now he's replaced someone new with someone new, nominated, I should say. It'll be confirmed. But E.J. Antoni is an economist at the Conservative Heritage Foundation. So again, doesn't mean they don't know their numbers or whatever, but they're coming from a massive and influential conservative think tank. So just bear that in mind. He accompanied this announcement with this Truth Social post saying that they're highly respected. That just means he likes them. You won't be respected anymore if he doesn't like you anymore. He says our economy is booming and EJ will ensure that the numbers released are honest and accurate. They have always been honest and accurate. That doesn't mean that they didn't ever get it wrong. The fact that numbers need to be revised in future months is evidence of that, and that has always been the case. It's been the case under him. It's been the case under Biden, under George W. But they're doing the best job that they can. And that ran afoul of Donald Trump. You see, you have the jobs numbers that are real, that are accurate, that are correct. And then you have the hypothetical jobs numbers that would be politically correct, that would be acceptable to the dear leader. And those are no longer being generated by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Will E.J. Antoni generate politically correct numbers that Donald Trump can tolerate? That remains to be seen. Again, he will not individually be crunching the numbers, but if he starts cleaning house, if he starts bringing in, doggy people to work there or whatever, well, then you might see something like that. And I will bear in mind, he has been very critical of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Again, baselessly. And he has even announced recently that perhaps we should do away entirely with the jobs numbers. And it's convenient to do that if they don't look good for the president who just appointed you. Because Nina, if he puts out another couple months of accurate but bad numbers, he would expect, I'm sure, that he'd be fired too. And so again, this is no way to run a serious government, a modern democracy. But for some tin pot dictatorship, yeah, this is run of the mill. What do you think?
Oh yeah, no, definitely that. And and please, folks, don't be fooled by the PhD behind this man's name. That means absolutely nothing, given the way that he's coming into this job. He will not. I wouldn't be surprised, John, if they announce that they are going to do away with the numbers, because that's the only way this man is going to be able to keep his job. He will not give a accurate jobs report if the accuracy means that President Trump is not going to be happy. And in that, we should all be concerned. Service to a leader does not mean capitulating. It doesn't mean just flat out lying and deceiving the American people. If the president is so fragile that he can't handle the truth, then there's something wrong, especially since he ran as a populist. He should want to know what the truth is so that then he can use his powers and his influence to make it better for Americans in this country, from East Palestine, Ohio, all the way to Cleveland, Ohio, to LA, to wherever these folks live, Iowa, wherever they live, John. That's how he ran. But now he don't want the truth. Jack Nicholson said it better than me in the movie Few Good Men. He can't handle the truth.
Yeah, and there is, I don't think this is an exaggeration. There is nothing more pathetic than running as fast as you can from reality, running from the truth. If you're a regular person, you're struggling and there's something that's just, I get that. He's the goddamn leader. And he would purport, if you were to ask him, to be a man. He ain't either of those things. If you're scared of reality, if you stick your head in the sand from the truth, if it hurts your feelings, that's utterly pathetic, man. Utterly pathetic. And here's the issue with this guy. Will the numbers be accurate or not? We'll never know. How would we know? Maybe they will. Maybe he won't get involved. But now we need to question it. And we've never had to do that before. And I defy you, if you're MAGA or whatever, I've been doing this show for a long time. Go back to a good jobs number under Donald Trump that I said I don't believe. Go back to Biden or Obama, a bad jobs number that I say I don't believe. You're not gonna find it. Because we've always been able to accept that those numbers are right. Now, what caused the numbers, whether we think responsibility should go to the president, I always feel like people exaggerate that a little bit, both under Democrats and Republicans. But if it's bad for a really long time, that doesn't look good for Donald Trump. And so maybe we just don't get these anymore. Utterly pathetic from top to bottom. Okay, we're gonna take our first break. There is so much more to get to. Stick around, Nina and I will be back after this. We're gonna start off this social break with a Galfar who says, I prefer the Jack Nicholson quote, you ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? I like to ask that of all my friends. It's a classic movie and I do like it. Not as applicable to this conversation, but I do think it's a good quote. Anyway, I don't know if this is a reference to something or just like Unturned Stone said in the YouTube chat at the Damage Report, get a wife and 3 children. Well, I have a wife and I have a child. Does that give me half credit? What's the problem? Do I not have a serious enough life to comment on this? I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstanding you. I don't know. I don't want to get aggressive with you, but it sounded like an accusation. I don't know. Anyway. Okay, Miss World says in the members' comments, I am watching Nina Turner and listening to Nina Simone. Thank goodness for happy accidents.
Oh,
I would pause the music, focus on Nina Turner.
You know my heart. 2 great Ninas, John. I think the Dragon Squad knows. My mom named me after Nina Simone.
I didn't know that. I don't think.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I have no idea why I'm named John. I think because like 1 in 5 guys in 1983 were. I don't know. Nobody's named John anymore these days. I'm gonna sound like an old man in like 10 years. Anyway, Don Data Dragon says Black Pearl Dragon, absolutely love your Threads posts. Oh, I'm not really. Is Threads your like social media site of choice these days?
Yeah, John, I'm trying to rock on all of them, but yeah,
okay.
I'm on the Threads. So thank you so much for that. It's nice to know that people are reading that.
That's awesome. All I want is a single thing that I type it in and it goes to all of them. That's right? Why do I have to choose?
We can invent that and make some money.
Yeah, I'm gonna call it Woof. Actually, I'm gonna get some office money there. John's named after John Candy. Maybe, I don't know. Was he that famous by 1983? I don't know. But anyway, Mongoose Dragon says in the members' comments, he hated crypto in 2020 until 100%. He hated it. He used to badmouth it constantly until he realized, oh wait, this is the literal easiest way in history to grift people. And so he started releasing digital trading cards. He started releasing stupid coins. Then he had the platform. And someday, man, there's gonna be an analysis, an investigation into what happened in the early years of that Trump crypto trading platform. And then like a year after we all know about it, Jake Tapper's gonna do a book. And it is gonna reveal bribery on a level the world has never known. It's gonna make that Qatari jet look like nothing because it is all anonymous. You can transfer as much money as you want. You think what? Like just based on an internal commitment to ethics, the Trump family wouldn't be accepting money from not only America's rich, but the rich around the world? Forget about it. Someday, man, Ken Klippenstein is gonna get into those files. He's gonna reveal some crazy stuff. Anyway, okay, let's see. There is a massive block of emojis of Nina's face in the Twitch chat. Thank you, Twitch chat, for showing up right there. By the way, thank you to everybody who came to the show from the watch party with JR Jackson. I know everybody's having a lot of fun with that in the hour leading up to our show each day. Thank you, JR. Ben Clark, thank you for being a member, much appreciated. Dragon Dancer for gifting a membership. CDN Northstock Dad for gifting one as well. Thank you so much. And Thomas Sears, member for 42 months, says stock buybacks are market manipulation and are strictly speaking illegal. Oh wait, never mind, they write the law, so yeah. Look, again, I'm not an expert. I'm sure that in some limited cases it makes sense or whatever, but when you're doing it to the tune of like Apple, $100 billion in 1 year, and it's all legal. It's all legal. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, let's have a little bit of a palate cleanser in the news before we return to the dark stuff. Let's jump into this.
You're obviously still full of a vigor and intensity for the things that you're passionate about and have been for decades. Is there another presidential run in you?
Oh, God. Let's not worry about that. I am going to be 84 years of age next month, as a matter of fact. So I think that speaks for itself. But right now, what is more important, in my view, and I want to see, obviously, the most progressive candidate that we can have, is to rally the grassroots of America. A moment ago, you asked me about West Virginia and why people vote for Donald Trump. Our job is to turn that around.
So it is pretty clear from that interview and from others that he's done that Bernie Sanders would probably be perfectly happy to not be asked about a future presidential run anymore. I think he's probably sick of it and the speculation. That said, I'm still going to speculate. But he was also asked about sort of a related topic. Okay, so let's say that you don't run again in 2028. And, to his credit, he maybe he's 84. He looks to me the same as he did 5 or 6 years ago. Maybe I'm biased or whatever, They say everybody thinks their kid is the cutest and everybody thinks that their progressive champion has never aged a day. Those are the sayings, you've heard them before. He looks the same to me. But that said, he was asked about, well, who might pick up the mantle? And so Dana Bash says, are there people out there who you feel comfortable and confident will take up the Bernie Sanders mantle and run in 2028? To which he said, humbly, well, that's not the Bernie Sanders. Will they stand up and fight for economic and social and racial justice? Absolutely. There are some great young people, but he kept his cards pretty close to his chest there and didn't say. So Nina, are you also sick of the speculation? Do we need to move on from putting hopes and expectations on Bernie Sanders to run and start looking to, admittedly, a pretty good bench of good young progressives of a variety of different stripes? Where do you stand on all this?
I wouldn't say I'm sick of it, but come on. I mean, the senator, that is the Senator Sanders I remember from the campaign trail. So I'm right with you, John. I mean, I was there in 2016, extra there in 2020, being one of the national co-chairs for the senator. And yes, that has not aged a day. But yeah, you could tell he is tired of being asked that question. He's out there trying to fight the good fight as best that he can. And I believe that he'll continue to do that until, he's going to continue to do that with every fiber of his being. He did answer that question just right. It is not necessarily for him to say and to start naming names, but to say that there are a group of leaders out there who could take up the progressive mantle, of which that mantle comes in many versions. Those of us who understand the 21st century version of it know that the senator awakened that in 2016, but let's understand there were progressive movements even before that. The Freedom Budget for All Americans comes to mind for me, John, where you had people like Asa Phillips, Randolph, Bayard Rustin, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who put forward a plan to eradicate poverty in the United States of America over a 10-year period from 1966 to 1976. When you pull from that, when you really tease that out, and I'm working on this project as a senior fellow at the New School, the Institute on Race, Power, and Political Economy. But when you tease it out, John, plank by plank by plank, it sounds very much similar to what those of us who consider ourselves progressives today are fighting for. So yes, there's energy out there among a whole group of leaders. I don't necessarily think that people are looking for just one leader. It's going to take more than just one leader to put this ship on a different path.
I agree, and even if you had the good president, you need some good people in the House. You need a speaker who's not going to purposefully try to be a stumbling block. You need good senators. You need all of that. You need good governors. You need good mayors. Good head of the DNC. 100%. Yeah, so I think that there are a lot of good ones. That said, I guess I am a mark. If he were to run, I probably would end up supporting him, although there are other politicians that I'm kind of rooting for right now. But and you're totally right. He was not, I think he sort of normalized for me in political campaigns what John Oliver has normalized a little bit in some political media online, in that, you don't have to just be vaguely optimistic. There was a same sort of hope, I think, for Obama, that it's going to be a government that's for us. But there was like Bernie normalized like a lot of specifics and being more explicit about the problem, you know, in a way that like I think was a little bit more granular that I liked. Because we got to talk about policy and we have to be able to, you know, have expectations. And so I want to see more of that. And we see a lot of candidates doing that. And even people like Harris felt like she had to put out, you know, during her campaign, some detailed policies and stuff like that, because we expect that at this point. But that said, oh, sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say we definitely deserve that. And so you have people like my dear friend, Congressman Ro Khanna out there on the stump. I do believe, John, that anybody that's thinking about 2028 and they're not doing anything in 2025 are disqualified.
Yeah.
Because we got to fight right now. We got to get to 2028. And how we get there is not by people sitting on the sidelines or speculating or doing the least that they can do. And then also, I would like the TYT family, particularly the Dragon Squad, to think about that leader or that person does not necessarily have to come from somebody who is currently elected. Now, we know that governors and senators and congresspeople are the people we tend to look to, but maybe we do need somebody or a group of somebodies who have the guts and the courage to stand up right now in this moment and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help us God, and who are not controlled by owner donors to be rocking and rolling. So John, your vision about progressives arguing over, I see your progressive and I raise you. That's what I want to see as well. And so I'm really happy to see Congressman Ro Khanna, a dear friend of mine. As a matter of fact, John, as you know, we're going to be rolling through the ATL on Monday. We're doing a town hall in the evening. Just ask the audience to check out our social media. I don't have the exact location right now, but really talking about the needs of the people in this country and how we can turn this thing around. Certainly the congressman and I don't believe we have all the answers, but we have some of them, and we need fighters, not just us to be the fighters, but the everyday people out there to be in this fight with us. That's how we're going to change this country.
I love it. I wish I was closer to Atlanta. If you swing by LA, please let me know. I would like to go.
I wish
that sounds awesome.
John.
Yeah, and let me just, you were 100% right. You can't wait until like the beginning of 2027, then all of a sudden pop up with like, you know, a cool logo or whatever.
That's right.
We need you now. You got to be doing some stuff, okay? You know, go around, talk to people, stand up to the militarization of some of these cities, you know? If like, you know, if you're California's governor, start a podcast, bring on Steve Bannon. Do something that shows that you understand the moment we're in, okay? And that you're a fighter for us. Talk to Charlie Kirk on your podcast. Something real, you know? Gavin Newsom.
Knock down homeless encampments, why don't you?
Exactly. Yeah, do something like that the base is asking for, you know? Anyway, okay. I think we should probably move ahead to C, actually. I apologize for throwing a spanner in the works, but I want to make sure that we get to all these big topics. And so I'm gonna let Bernie rest for a minute. And then I'm gonna pressure him to run in 2028. But let's move on to this. It turns out, in a fun little twist, that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's Monday remark about the deployment of troops take over DC may have actually already caused some damage to a different legal trouble that the Trump administration is having right now. See, they're in court over the fact that they invaded LA, where I live, and the way that he talked about the current invasion and harkened back to the LA invasion really undercuts the Trump legal argument that they're making. So let me walk you through it so you understand how he might have blown a wide hole in this case. So this was during the press conference yesterday. It was on the federal takeover of DC. Hegseth announced that the National Guard will be flowing into the streets of Washington in the coming week, and that there are other units we are prepared to bring in, other National Guard units, other specialized units. They will be strong, they will be tough, and they will stand with their law enforcement partners. And importantly, this is nothing new for DOD. In Los Angeles, we did the same thing, working with the California National Guard, working with ICE officers. And in response to that, California's attorney, which is on the California side of that legal proceeding, moved to enter that announcement of the National Guard deployment, specifically his comments about the troops standing with their law enforcement partners and having done the same thing in LA into evidence. And they were ultimately admitted by the judge. Now, the Trump administration had said, no, you can't enter that because they weren't already on the exhibit list. And the judge observed that because of the way that time works linearly, they couldn't have been entered before they were said. But exactly, Skittlebutt in the chat gets to the true heart of this. There was assertions at the time that this is a violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. And it kind of seems pretty clear from what Pete Hegseth is saying there that it is in fact a violation of that. Now, the proceeding is continuing. We're gonna have to see what happens in that. But the Hegseth thing, this is not like, this is not Tom Homan or something. This is the head of the Department of Defense making these comments. That is serious. Now, that said, you also have some potential outs if you're the Trump administration. It is Pete Hegseth, so you could say, well, nobody takes him seriously, he's wildly unqualified for his position, and you have a point there. You could alternatively say, well, it was a day that ends in day, and so he was probably drunk at the time that he said that, and that's also a compelling legal argument there. But I do think that it's ironic that potentially their invasion of DC could hurt them in terms of the consequences of their invasion of LA. And honestly, as we're gonna get to, with how hot they seem to start invading other cities around America, anything that adds some legal obstacles, I think is a good thing right now. But Nina, we haven't had you on since the announcement on Monday. I don't know if you've been to DC recently. Apparently, everyone there is being assaulted right now, and something has to be done about it, okay? It was really bad and Trump's hand was forced, and so he's taking it over. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, damn the stats. Violent crime is down in DC. And I understand, I'm not saying that in a flippant way, because if you are a victim of violent crime, those stats don't really mean a whole lot to you. But it doesn't surprise me, a man who doesn't even like the labor numbers would not care whether or not violent crime is down in DC. And certainly all of us should be concerned about any innocent person who is a victim. The very fact that this president is trying to turn elected leaders into enemies of the state, so to speak, really galls me, especially as somebody who has not only served as a Cleveland City Councilwoman, but also worked for a mayor who worked tirelessly for the city of Cleveland and cared every day what happened to the people in his city. And mayors and council members, for the most part, some exceptions, really do care and are out there doing everything that they can with very, very limited resources. So turning up the heat and turning these cities into war zones are not the answer. Part of the answer is, can we increase the federal minimum wage? Part of the answer is making sure that everybody has healthcare. Part of the answer is making sure that childcare is affordable. You know where I'm going with this, John. That's part of the answer. The other part is, yes, if somebody is a violent criminal, we have laws on the books already for that. What happened to less government, John? What happened to that? Why don't you let the local officials do their jobs? You can come in, you can pick up the phone and call them. You can try to be helpful to them. But what I reject and what I resent is him turning these elected leaders into enemies of the state. And it's wrong.
100%. Yeah, and normalizing just, our soldiers are they're no longer there for, stuff abroad. They're there to be used against US citizens. That's what they're there for, okay? And right now, most conservatives don't care, despite decades of talking about the federal government taking over all that. They don't care because it's gonna be in blue cities or whatever. But okay, after a few more years of getting it normalized, okay, so it's President Buttigieg in like 4 years, and another mass shooting in Texas, and nothing happens. And so, I don't know, it seems like an emergency. Maybe the federal government needs to occupy Texas until they get their gun violence problem in order or something. Maybe confiscate some guns. It is an emergency after all. This sort of thing can go both ways. When you expand the powers of the presidency, most people are gonna wanna keep that power when a new administration comes in. And we're gonna do this stuff about Charlie Kirk. Maybe we'll get to it in tomorrow's show. I just wanna briefly show graphic 9. Trump is now gonna create a squad. Oh, he has a squad he likes, actually, of 600 soldiers that are gonna be deployed in 2 different parts of America. Just anytime there's any issue in any city, he's going to flood hundreds of soldiers in the city. And for whatever, a racial justice protest, police brutality or something. But obviously we know where this is going. It's gonna be the midterm elections, okay? They're gonna gin up some sort of thing and they're gonna send in a bunch of soldiers to patrol the voting locations or the vote counting locations. And I hope that between now and then, I mentioned this like 50 times, and I come off looking like the most hyperbolic goof in America because it never actually materializes. But I'm not too worried about that because I think that's what he's doing all of this for. And I think that's why the right-wing media is so excited about it. They like this potentially being a like pressure release valve that saves them in the midterms. Anyway, we need to take our second break. We got a lot more to get to after this. I know, Galfar, I see your comment about like you act like if Trump does this, he'll then give up the power and we expect that he won't. Again, like if I thought that there was no hope whatsoever, then I would just stop doing the show entirely. I have to assume that there is at least some hope. And I'm not even necessarily relying on him stepping down from power. I'm relying on his cardiovascular system doing what cardiovascular systems do when you mistreat them for the better part of a century. At some point, something's got to give. I'm thinking aorta. But anyway, let's jump to some of your comments. Shock Lines Matt gifted 10 memberships. Super nice of you. Thank you for that. CD and North Dog Dad gifted another membership. Thank you so much. Swedish Sunflower Dragon, member for 10 months, says, Nina, missed you. Please come back more often, Queen. Greetings from Sweden. All the way from Sweden. Very nice there. Chris Miller, member for 22 months, says Turner El Sayed 2028, making sure people are fed and healthcare is fixed. I didn't know that that was the running ticket, but
I like it.
Not bad.
I like it, John. It has a nice ring to it. I like it.
Any announcement? No, I'm kidding. Let's bring him on. Okay, let's see. Free Meatballs and Linguini says Trump's wishbone must be working overtime because he's definitely missing the jawbone and the backbone. Welcome back, Senator Turner. We love seeing you. Is that's a quote from you, isn't it?
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
3 bones. Grandma's 3 bones: the wishbone, the jawbone, and the backbone. Oh my God.
I like it. Oh, I love it. Okay. Mege says Nina. Ohioan here.
OHIO, baby.
Thank you. Appreciate the super chat. Rosebud says, how is it Trump can call the guard up in DC yesterday, but could not January 6th? Only Nancy could. Yeah, that's actually a good call right there. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I mean, I know why he did in this case. It didn't there. I understand that. Okay, Gargoyle Dragon says in a super chat, #1 chatter right now, by the way. They have that interesting crown ranking system. Says, I was at the Iowa State Fair and I asked my local Dem party what policies they were going to run on. And they told me they were just going to back candidates and they wonder why they're unpopular. Yeah, like you can have a platform. That used to be a thing. Can we get back to that? Nina, have you seen any sign of like what the Democrats' like marquee issue is going to be in the midterms?
No, none, and that's scary. No, and that could very well lose. Absolutely.
Oh my God! If they fumble this, I know that there's the redistricting and all that, like that potentially could sway the outcome. But if they biff these midterms, which should be an epic refutation of Donald Trump and the Republicans. As if we need any more pressure on the 2028 primary, I want to at least have stemmed the bleeding at that point.
That part. And we're going to have to go a third party because both of these parties are failing. I mean that. I'm in the Democratic Party, not of it. And just by disgruntled as hell, John, and just, most voters did not vote. So that's a whole party itself. But you're right. If the Democrats mess this up, they're not fit.
Yeah. I mean, granted, we're saying that they already lost to Trump again. I mean, that was the big messed it up. And look, I understand it was a mess of
popular
a presidential
vote,
race.
John. No. Yeah. The popular vote and the Electoral College had not lost the popular vote in 20 years.
Yeah.
Of all the times not to lose, it was 2024.
Dear God. Okay, everybody. Well, we got more news coming up, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this. Okay, everybody, if you're just joining us now, please hit the like button as we jump into these last stories. Before Ghislaine Maxwell appears to have cut some sort of deal with the Trump administration, did she try to do the same thing with the Biden administration, revealing the dirt that she had on Donald Trump to get a pardon from Joe Biden? New reporting is saying exactly that, although grain of salt. We'll jump you through all the details. It was apparently common knowledge among the inmates at the Federal Correction Institution Tallahassee, that's the low security prison in Florida where Maxwell was housed until a few weeks ago when she moved to like the Ritz-Carlton or whatever, that she hoped to avoid serving her full term by trading information for a presidential pardon from Biden. That's according to a former inmate named Catherine Kamali talking to the Daily Mail. So that's grains of salt. It's an inmate. So, we'll see. And it's the Daily Mail. But that said, here's what the inmate said. I heard her tell another inmate that she had dirt on Trump and that it was going to get her a pardon from Biden. I guess Biden's camp just didn't want to go down that route. And that is, if you're a Republican, there's no way that you accept that. You think, oh no, if Biden was presented with anything, he was gonna use it to take down Donald Trump because you believe that the Biden administration weaponized the justice system, and that for some reason you don't think Trump is. Okay, I just want to remind everyone who has a somewhat open mind, they slow rolled every legal proceeding against Donald Trump, including the ones that were completely transparent. He stole the documents. He tried to do a coup. All of that. Merrick Garland was moving at like a Mitch McConnell-esque pace on every bit of that. Joe Biden, for all of the other criticisms I will make of him, wanted no part of politicizing any of this, of getting involved. And I would say, as a result of that, whether for good motivations or not, allowed a felon to get back into the White House and stopped us from getting justice on all of these many cases. So I think it is entirely possible that Maxwell did go to them with information and they rejected it. Now, they could have also rejected it because she didn't have any evidence for what she was saying, that she was making up things. All of these are possibilities. And as with everything else in the Epstein case, we will likely never know because of the cover up that the Trump administration is now engaged in. But just understand that she was apparently working on this. Now, let's get to a little bit more details of what was going on during the Biden administration before we comment. Biden's DOJ concluded in a 2022 sentencing memo that Maxwell was unreliable and unremorseful. Both of those things seem to be true, writing that she apparently decides when she wishes to disclose facts to the court, and those facts shift when it serves the defendant's interests. If anything stands out from the defendant's sentencing submission, it is her complete failure to address her offense conduct and her utter lack of remorse, noting that she participated in sexually abusing her victims. So they were saying she will tell people whatever she needs to get the pardon. And I will remind everyone, she met with Donald Trump's personal lawyer and she has been moved to a nice little resort, and any day now she could be pardoned, or at the very least not reveal what she actually knows. So that said, this is the first time, Nina, you've been on since this entire Epstein thing has blown up. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's really sick. She should not get a pardon. She should not get any empathy, sympathy. It's too late now, obviously, but she is a trafficker. And as you laid out, abused young girls, young women. Why would we reward somebody that was participating in pedophilia? Should never do it. As far as the Biden administration is concerned, all the things that you laid out, John, are possibilities. I want to add one more to it. It's also possible that the Biden administration didn't want to open Pandora's box. Because as you know, and I know, and others probably speculate, this should not just be about partisanship. This should be about justice for those who were injured, for the victims, and let the chips fall where they may, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. That should matter not. What should matter is that wealthy people, mainly men, and if there are women in there, I mean, Maxwell is one, abuse their authority at the expense of victims. So I surmise, John, that part of it could have been not wanting to open Pandora's box for political reasons, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for us to say, release all the documents. I don't care if Republicans or Democrats go down, but it's possible that a prominent Democrat didn't want it. Maybe there are donors in there. Maybe Bill Clinton is in there or whatever. I guess that is possible. But anyway, more reason to not necessarily trust what Maxwell says, or in this case, doesn't say. That said, I think we're going to stay on this topic for the other part of this and close out the hour with this. We have a story we want to do about data centers and their environmental impact. We will get to that at some point. But anyway, I want to briefly talk about this because I'm very curious about Nina's opinion on this. So, Donald Trump has been trying for almost a month now to distract from the Epstein story, to give out little bits of information or browbeat his fans into not caring about it, talking about it being a Democratic hoax, talking about Obama and Russia and all that stuff. And weeks have gone by. And none of those distractions worked in getting people off the story. But weeks and weeks have gone by, and have those weeks done what the distractions couldn't? Have they sapped people's interest in this scandal and the cover up? That is the case that Harry Enton's gonna make.
Google searches for Epstein down 89% versus just 3 weeks ago, falling through the floor. It is no longer the top term searched alongside Donald Trump's name. That's been trading off between Taros and Vladimir Putin, with obviously the meeting coming up later this week. But at this particular point, the American people's interest in this story, it's quickly becoming something of a nothing burger. Trump's approval rating in July of 2025, it was 45%. It's still well within that margin of error here at 44%. And you compare that to where he was in his first term at this point, he was at 37%. So he's 7 points higher. And more than that, among Republicans, his approval rating is near a record high, hovering right at about that 90% mark. So no, he hasn't lost any of that base.
So look, the fact that it's not like people don't cite it as the most important topic, like you can see this graphic, only one person cited it in mid-July as the most important topic. I don't necessarily think that means people don't care about it. Is it the most important thing happening right now? I don't know. The tariff stuff is pretty important. I think the genocide in Gaza is pretty important. So that doesn't necessarily mean nobody cares. The fact that he's only lost like 1 or 2 points of Republicans, despite the most stumbling and bumbling, obvious cover up ever, with all these updates of, oh no, it turns out his name was in there and they redacted it. Actually, it's in the files 1,000 times. And oh, by the way, he sent his personal lawyer to Ghislaine Maxwell. And oh, what do you know? Right after that, she got put into a minimum security prison. And oh, according to Raw Story 2 hours ago, she might have been cleared for work release. We'll see about that. The Raw Story is the only place that I'm seeing that so far. But evidently, she might have been cleared to leave prison for work release. It's all transparent. And yet, he doesn't seem to have lost much of MAGA, despite the fact that MAGA has been QAnoned out for years. And this is an obvious cover up. By the way, he's gotten a big assist. Fox News has not said anything about all this. They've devoted, according to Media Matters, more than 7 times as much coverage to Sydney Sweeney's jeans than they did to this obvious political cover up. Nina, what do you think about this? Have people moved on? Is it still an issue? Should people care? What do you think?
No, yeah, definitely people should care, but have they moved on? Your points are right on. Paying for my groceries. You know, AP just came out with a poll that said about 86% of Americans are stressed about buying groceries. 76% are stressed about paying at their job. And then about 75% are stressed about housing. So yeah, it might not rate at the top, but people should be. And I think people are still concerned about this. And the media for that reporter to say it's a nothing burger, I would ask the victims, do they think it's a nothing burger? It is the journalist, it is journalists' responsibility to continue to cover this story, whether people are Googling it or not. We've just lost all, well, I shouldn't say lost all humanity. Man, this welcome to America.
Yeah, 100% right. And by the way, the fact that he's gone this whole month and has never had to acknowledge the victims, other than that they were his property.
John, one other quick point, because I know our producers are saying we have to go, but this is not new. Like, people should definitely understand this. Just the obscenity of it all is what's stunning to us. But this stuff is not new, and we really got to search deep into our souls what type of country we want to be, because we already know where we are and what we have been, for sure.
Yeah, and what we expect out of a president. The fact that we lift up maybe the worst person in our country we hand the reins of power. Maybe at some point we can stop doing that. Anyway, that's the end of the first hour of the show. Nina's gonna be back for the aftermath. We do have more to talk about. So definitely stick around if you're watching live. We'll see you in a few. Welcome back, one and all, to the aftermath. We've got some more news for you. I just want to add one thing to the story that we closed the first hour with. The news that Maxwell the reporting from an inmate that Maxwell had tried to get a pardon from Joe Biden. One of her lawyers said in a statement to the Daily Beast, there are plenty of absurd rumors out there, but this one, patently false, might just take the cake. That's from attorney David Oscar Marcus. So David Oscar Marcus he's earned his pay. He said the thing that he's supposed to say or whatever, and it might even be true. Again, we already gave multiple caveats that it's one inmate talking to the Daily Mail. I also think it's entirely possible that in a span of 4 years, Ghislaine Maxwell decided she doesn't want to spend the rest of her life in prison. So anyway, that's what they say. We'll see what ends up happening. We'll see if she's on that work release. In the chat, Brooke says, gets work release, works as a spa manager. Anything's possible. You think it's impossible that she'll like party at Mar-a-Lago at some point in the next 2 years? I think she speaks at the RNC 2028, but we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, with that said, and jokes aside, why don't we move into very serious news, starting with this.
Israel reoccupying all of Gaza has been suggested by some Israeli officials?
Well, I don't know what the suggestion is. I know that we are there now trying to get people fed. As you know, $60 million was given by the United States fairly recently to supply food, and a lot of food, frankly, for the people of Gaza that are obviously not doing too well with the food. So that's what I'm focused on. As far as the rest of it, I really can't say. That's going to be pretty much up to Israel.
Yeah, that's just up to Israel. If Netanyahu wants to conquer every square inch of Gaza, it's on them, and we're just focusing on giving out food. I'm not going to acknowledge why it's tough to get the food to them, that the IDF is stopping the aid from coming in. No, we gave them $60 million. Well, it's not $60 million. It's eventually maybe going to be $30 million. It's a tiny fraction of that right now. And we gave it to that organization that was set up basically by Israel, specifically to corral Palestinians down into southern Gaza, so it'll be easier to push down into that one humanitarian city before we ship them around the globe. And that's all I can do. I'm the president of the United States. What more could I possibly do to influence this thing? I'm a tiny little shriveled baby boy. I have no power. I have no military. What am I going to use? Like tariffs as a tool to influence foreign policy and everything? No. This is a stupid little issue. This isn't like, Brazil pursuing a case against Bolsonaro where I literally jack their tariff up by 50%. It's nothing like that. It's not me adding 25% to the tariff on India because they're buying Russian oil. That's a serious issue. This is a tiny little thing, and I'm a tiny little baby boy, and I can't possibly influence it. And that is unfortunately the message that Donald Trump is sending every single day. He is in a submissive relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, who calls all the shots, and Donald Trump is never going to even raise his voice, let alone actually contradict Netanyahu. Well, thankfully, there are some people who are not happy with Netanyahu, and they are having their voice be heard. And about 100,000 of them took to the streets of Tel Aviv to protest against Netanyahu and his decision to effectively conquer the rest of Gaza. So massive demonstrations. They want an end to the military campaign. They want a release of the hostages. Bear in mind, Netanyahu says, against all evidence and against what the experts say, that conquering Gaza City will help get the hostages back. That is obviously not the case. The hostages' families have made clear that they don't think that's the case. They think it is far more likely to end up killing the remaining hostages. And so that's the current situation. We've got the president who's not going to do a goddamn thing. And then you have inside of Israel a lot of Israelis who are speaking out against this. Not necessarily for the exact same reasons in some cases that I might, but they don't want a continuation of this military campaign. And that is good news. We've got more on this, but Nina, what do you make of it?
No, that is good news, John. And it is important to point out that it might not be for similar reasons, but the outcome is to stop the madness. President Donald J. Trump, 60 million compared to the multi-billions of dollars that Israel has been given. The fact that only Israel has a superpower backing it compared to what is happening to the Gazans, and who are being pushed out of what was literally an open air prison. They were never able to control their destiny even before October 7th. And sure as hell not able to control their destiny now. This is beyond a humanitarian crisis, John. This is the canary in the coal mine, because as we know, in places like the Sudan that barely gets a mention, places like Congo and Haiti and other places all around the world where there are predominantly Black people, these crises are not even mentioned. The important part to continue to raise about Gaza is that it is with our money. So that is why when people ask the crazy question, why? No, because it is our money that we give to the state of Israel, to a right-wing government every single year, and that gives us greater authority. It is because of international law. It is the Leahy Law. It is the Foreign Assistance Act 620I. And you know what, John? Any politician, but especially Democrats, as we look towards 2028, and I really mean this, and I hope other people mean it too, who do not have the courage to call this what it is, which it is a genocide. Again, they are not fit to run in 2028 at all. And but by the grace of God, there go any of us could be in any of these places. This is, I mean, I'm telling you, I'm trying not to cuss right now, but that's the level that this is on, because it could be any of us. And I've certainly, John, I know you have too, talked to many people who family members are there right now in real time or were there, but they've been murdered. So it's one thing, the murder rate. There's another thing, to starve people to death, all people, not just women and babies, because we say women and children as if that is going to pique people to care a little more. No, I'm talking about men, women, and children. We're talking about human beings. And let us not forget who empowered all of this. President Joseph R. Biden does not get a pass.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, that administration was just as weak. Just, no, what are you going to do? I talked to him. He said he's just going to keep killing people, I get. Yeah. Wouldn't it be great to have someone in power who could actually say, is Benjamin Netanyahu like the scariest? Like, you get into a room with him, he's just the scariest person on planet. Is he like Jason or Freddy or something? Why are they all so utterly scared of him? I will never understand that. I will never. These people, they stand up to Putin. I mean, not Donald Trump, but others, they stand up to Putin or whatever. No big deal. China, bring it. We'll stop you, China. When it's Benjamin Netanyahu, what do you want, sir? I'll give you some more aid. Can I please say that I gave $60 million for food? I didn't, but can I pretend that I gave almost 1/3 what I'm spending on my new fancy ballroom? Can I pretend that, please? Sure, Trump, go do that or whatever.
Well, and big ups to people like my dear Benjamin from Cold Pink, those ladies and men who go down to that Congress almost every single day, risk being arrested, roughed up, Jewish Voices for Peace, others, Palestinian groups and leaders, and just people from all walks of life who have come together to say that this should not happen on our watch, and it definitely should not happen in our name and with our dollars. So if there's any silver lining, and I hate even using that term, it is that there are pro-peace, anti-war people out there who are standing up and really putting their bodies on the line, including our students who did those encampments who were maligned, just really standing up and saying this is not the kind of future that we want to have. This is not only untenable, it's immoral.
100%. As much as, on the level of the worst crises that you mentioned, others around the world. Let me just briefly mention that while America just can't do anything, it just doesn't really seem to have a problem with what's going on there, our leadership. There are a number of states that have put out statements against this. Germany, Britain, and France say that they strongly reject the decision to expand the military operation. A number of other countries are saying it's dangerous and unacceptable. That includes Egypt, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the UAE. Even Russia says it would worsen the situation. So Donald Trump in that little thruple is obviously the most submissive, I guess, of those. By the way, Australia is actually it's expected it's going to be recognizing the Palestinian state in the near future. There's some others that are working towards that. And so that's something, you got UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, a few states that are doing something as we all just watch another massacre every day. Do you know in the past 24 hours, 89 Palestinians were murdered. 31 of them were just getting aid. That's one day of it.
And what about 1,000 on the West Bank, with the settlers? if this was happening in Tel Aviv, Israel would not be responding in this way. I mean, that's really something to think about. They would have found another way to respond. I mean, this is just so gut-wrenching and heartbreaking that people can't even try to get their basic needs met in a war zone. And this is the war on Gaza. It is in no way equal by any stretch of the imagination at all. And it really is going to take the American people, John, because our leaders, most of them, with a few, big ups to Congresswoman Tlaib, and others who hold strong, but for the most part, feckless.
100%. Yeah. For a variety of reasons. And some of it goes back to what we were talking about. What's that?
Donor donors are in full control.
Exactly. Again, money, a big part of this. Okay, well, we're going to move on to another topic. We have time, I think, for both of these. Let's jump into this. So we made the case in the run-up to and when the bill was passed that Trump's big, beautiful bill was only going to be big and beautiful for the wealthy. And for the rest of us, it was going to be basically nothing, worsening our standing. And for those with the least, it was going to actively make their lives far harder. And that was obviously going to be the case. Well, a new analysis has come out and it's broken down the actual effect of that bill on different classes of Americans. And what do you know? It's what we said it was. Maybe worse by the numbers, actually. I want to show you this chart. And I understand it's a chart or whatever. Try to stay awake. This chart is just what the Republican Party is. Every bill the Republicans have ever passed or will ever pass has this exact effect. Maybe like 0.1% different or whatever. The bottom 10%, the bottom 30% really, are gonna be hurt by it, whatever it is. In this case, it's the big, beautiful bill. It'll be, Tucker Carlson's big tax bill that he'll do, in his first 100 days when he becomes president, whatever. And what do you know? The higher you get up on the economic ladder, the more you actually benefit. And so the top 10% over the course of the next decade or so they'll be about 2.3% richer as a result of this. And I want you to understand, these are people who already have millions and millions and millions of dollars. They have it as easy as it is possible to have it, except apparently not, because now they're gonna have it about 2.3% easier than that. The people the toughest decision they have to make is like, what paint job do I want on my yacht? Are gonna get it 2.3% better. And those in the bottom 10%, those who are struggling, those who in this election were calling out for help, or at least acknowledgement of their struggles, are gonna have it 3.9% harder. And honestly, when I say this bill is the Republican Party, I mean both that the rich will benefit and the poor will be hurt, but that the poor will be hurt even more than the rich will benefit. Because I think they like that. I think the Republicans hate the poor more than they actually love the rich, although they do both of those. And bear in mind, this follows up previous analyses, all that pointed in this direction, but these are updated numbers. And in terms of why the poor are gonna come out so far behind as a result of this, a lot of this has to do with them losing access to either their health care or things like SNAP and food stamps. And so these are people who are already struggling so much, and the next 10 years are gonna be even harder for them. Nina, what do you think about it?
This is sick. This is some sick, y'all know what, excrement. It is sick. The comedian Bill Burr was interviewed and he said, and I've been saying this, but comedians can elevate it a little more. He said, how much do you need? So 900 million is not enough. That's what this comes down to. And we are really on the precipice of ladies and lords in the United States of America. Those who are in that category of the ultra wealthy, the ruling class, and their children and their children's children will always continue to be in that class, while the permanent underclass, so we're building a permanent ruling class by birth in the United States of America and continuing to cement a permanent underclass for no other reason but greed, gluttony, immorality, and hatred for poor people, working class people in the United States of America. John, this is a hell of a thing, but we better wake up quick.
100%. And that's the thing. Like, obviously we have our upper class, we have our underclass, but yeah, the feeling of permanence. And that would, like, when they poll like Gen Z and you see all like how they think about their future, like that's what they're feeling. It's the idea that no, all that stuff about mobility or whatever, which was always exaggerated.
Yeah.
But at least, like, in theory it could happen. Like, all of that is being closed off. And instead, what do you get? You're just every administration, it's another round of tax cuts. I don't know what they're gonna do when the taxes reach zero on the wealthy. Like literal subsidies. They just need a little bit more money for a slightly fancier dress when they go to the ball at the White House. And they eat fancy foods and they dance with the other billionaires and everything. And we're all starving on the outside. That is the world they're creating. People are making reference to the Hunger Games. That's what it feels like. That's the future that Republicans want.
And Democrats. And Don't Look Up, the movie Don't Look Up, dear friend David Sirota. I'm telling y'all, go on back and watch that movie. It sums up what we're really experiencing right now. Or Pete's Wine Caves. I remember when Buttigieg was running for president, and he decided to host a whole bunch of ultra wealthy people in a wine cave. That's what this is coming to.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, let's go to one more topic. Not exactly lighter, but we'll see what.
Come on, John.
I know. What's going on? Any good movies coming out recently? I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna jump into this. I'm gonna try to have a chipper voice as I talk about it. You've probably heard that your phone is rotting your brain. Well, new research has come out that indicates that actually that's probably what's happening, really. Yeah, no, it's probably really bad for you. The internet, the phone, the algorithm, the AI, it's all bad, and our brain is rotting. And I'm gonna try to get through this as fast as I can, because by the end of it, I might not be able to interpret the results. But the Financial Times has posted the results of an investigation into this. It's the Understanding America study, and they looked at 15,000 people over the course of a bunch of years. And what they found was a bunch of personality traits have been almost uniformly moving in very much the wrong direction over the course of their extended study. So in less than a decade, conscientiousness, that's the trait most closely linked to responsibility, follow through, self-control, has collapsed among young adults. Now, it's collapsed among everyone, but it's collapsed the most and the quickest among young adults. For those aged 16 to 39, it's not a gradual erosion. It's a plunge from respectability down to the low 30th percentile. Older adults who aren't addicted to smartphones, which that's what the article says, I think many of them are too, meanwhile remain essentially unchanged. So if you take a look at this chart, conscientiousness is on the left. The dark blue line, that's people who are age 60. Now, they haven't fallen as much, but they have still fallen. 40 to 59 have fallen quite a bit. It's just that the youngest people, Gen Z, have fallen the most. Now, neuroticism has jumped among the youngest category. It's jumped among the 40 to 59 as well. Agreeableness is down. Extroversion is down very significantly. Now, all of this goes back about a decade. Now, that's even at the beginning, smartphones are fairly ubiquitous at that point. I would say that the rollout of everything being algorithmic, hyper-targeted psychologically to addict you, the dopamine hits and all of that, that's more recent. In the last few years of that, you have the rise of generative AI, particularly the AI chatbots. And so this is not, you can't point at any one explanation for this. It's a context of the pandemic, the changing economy, changing media, all of that. But none of it really seems to be helping Nina. And as someone who has a young kid, I'm very worried about the context she's gonna be growing up in. I'm curious what you make of all this.
Yeah, I'm worried too, John. I have toddlers in my life, and it is nature nurture, the concept that we learned in high school. And parents and grandparents and aunties and uncles are going to have to do a better job of really pulling our children away from this. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, only had a third grade education, but she was one of the wisest women I've ever known. And she would always say, we're getting weaker and wiser. Now, she never lived to see any of the spectacular technology, but her mother wit really captured it. The more technology we get, which can be used for good things, the weaker we are becoming as a species. And that study is showing just a glimpse of that. In the olden days, we used to memorize phone numbers. John, I tell you, if I know 5 people's phone numbers by heart, baby, I don't know, because we just becoming so adapt and dependent on these so-called smart devices, and we're not really working our great computer as much as we once were. So I think there's something to this, and psychologists and other social scientists are going to come out with even more of how this is really rewiring us as a species, and not all for good, as you're laying out.
No, I mean, I'm sure there's something that's for the good. If I don't know, my brain is so hampered now. I probably can't come up with anything. But yeah, I know 2 phone numbers. One is mine, the other's 911, and that's about it. And there's a lot of other examples like that. Yeah, just there's a lot of stuff, and not all of it is directly technological. A lot of it has to do with changes in culture, about like the grind culture and how everything needs to be monetized and all, like social media. Yeah, like it used to be about following people you know, and now we mostly follow people we don't know, and we don't even get to choose what we see. The algorithm chooses for us, and we're incentivized to just sit and just advance from one video to the next, rather than even going on YouTube and looking for a video is even different than that, and let alone the AI. And I was just watching a video essay about like how hobbies aren't really a thing anymore, because you're supposed to be, you're never bored, so you never get a hobby to fill up the boredom. Your phone's always there to fill up the boredom. Again, I don't have a solution to all this. It's an ongoing conversation, but I will just remind everyone, we can move back in the opposite direction. It's possible. We all have these devices. We'll expect that we will, but we don't have to necessarily. I fully expect that it's possible maybe that Gen Alpha will grow up seeing the previous few generations as being digital zombies, and maybe they'll think of that as cringe, They'll use a different term. Yeah.
We need some old school and new school, John, always.
Let's hope. I'm trying to keep my daughter outside as much as possible. We go walking around. I'm trying. I'm doing my best. I'm not perfect. She watches YouTube videos. She knows who Miss Rachel is, who, by the way, is very good on Gaza. But anyway, doing my best. And I think we got the best out of you. You made the show better. Thank you, Nina. It is a pleasure to have you here, and hopefully we can again in the very near future.
Looking forward to it. And Dragon Squad, always a pleasure to be back home. Signing off, Black Pearl Dragon.
Thank you. Everybody, look out for Black Pearl Dragon and Ro Khanna in Atlanta in the very near future. And maybe coming to LA. We got cool places to do these little meetups. But anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Tomorrow's Big News Wednesday. Sharon Reed is going to be here, so you should be here as well. For now, though, stay safe out there. Stay sane out there. And we'll see you soon.